Welcome to all of our panelists, and as Randy has just introduced each one of you, I won't need to go through it all again. What I would very much like to see is that we have a conversation at this point, and what the idea of this panel is to discuss some of the strategies that various types of institutions from Canada and Italy have adopted to accelerate research innovation, bringing it to commercial products, services, startups, and so on. And to take this opportunity to share some of the challenges that you've encountered, the initiatives and programs that you've put into place, in particular thinking about the next generation of innovators, and to be able to talk about how we actually measure and address innovation in this very fast-changing global context. So the first question that I would like to put out to our panelists, we're representing the university sector, we've got national research labs, we've got industry, and particular sectors of innovation represented here today. And so maybe some of you have some ideas about what some of the particularly important challenges are that we need to address in order to be able to move ideas to innovations and tangible outcomes. And maybe I could ask either our Italian or Canadian representative from our National Research Lab to start this conversation.
Up to you.
Make your choice.
I'm going to let you jump in. Otherwise, it gets too structured.
Well, let me take a stab then, just not to really preempt anybody, but I'll say one thing just as an aside before we begin, and that is clearly the Governor General knew I was on this panel, and he quickly snuck out because he's heard some of these things maybe before. I think what's really important for us to remember in innovation is that research is sort of a necessary but not sufficient condition. We heard some mention this morning about how it in fact is actually a social construct, a cultural construct in many, many ways. And that means that, as the Governor General so rightly put, you know, it's not a linear process, it's a very confused and interactive process with many feedback loops and mechanisms. But in the end, to be successful, it does require some sense of destination. And so in the case, for example, of the National Research Council, what we're trying hard to do is identify critical destinations for Canada against which we can be a facilitator to encourage creative thinking from within our organization or from outside that can be brought together really to make a difference against those kinds of issues. I think that's a very important element.
So it's identifying the endpoints.
That's right.
Yeah, I think that there are many critical points for innovation. It's very simple to speak about innovation. First of all, I think we need to have a mentality of an innovator, which is something that doesn't mean that you want to make better some product that you already have. As you say on the title of this round table, you speak about creating market. The creating market means that you are really thinking about some kind of innovation that is not incremental, but is a radical innovation. That means the innovation is such that the innovator could be either a university professor, researcher, or an entrepreneur, should be able to see not in what we have now, but what we will need later in the future. That's the real innovator that really open new markets. It's really the kind of person that is able to invest for something that doesn't exist yet. And to do so, of course, you need, first of all, now, basis of good research, because it's the basis of everything. It's not only research, but also the capability of having experts of different disciplines able to speak each other. Because now a radical innovation doesn't come from one single activity or single science or single knowledge. But you need to put everything together. Otherwise, you don't get an innovation. If you see the diagnostic, for example, you could never have what you have today if people coming from physics, mathematics, engineering, and medical science, biology, they were not working together, but not in a sense of having some kind of a multidisciplinary approach, but is an interaction of experts that can speak each other. So we need experts, but we need experts that know how to translate to each other what they want to see, where we want to go. Surely there are many other needs. You need critical mass. Innovation doesn't come from one person. Needs critical mass. That's the reason why in Italy we are strongly working, because we feel that CNR and universities should be much closer, should work together in order to reach a critical mass of scientists that can really make a contribution of something new. A few years ago, we have started to develop what we call the technological districts. And this afternoon, we will have an example of a technological district on a specific technology that is composite material, trying to put university CNR together with industry in a way that they could work together, because the time to market of a knowledge is another important point. You cannot just write a paper and then from this paper you transfer knowledge. You need to design the activity, the research together with the company, and then you can translate immediately from knowledge that you are just producing into product. And the time to market becomes a key issue in the real success of some new idea, and really to make an innovation that can survive in a global market. The point of having an interaction between Italy and Canada is in this direction. We need to be able to work together to really make a group that could contribute from one side to creation of knowledge. And then from the creation of knowledge, as Tony Masi was saying this morning, then you can really make an innovation and you can go on the market. But you need something which is necessary but is not sufficient, is the creation of knowledge that is critical for that. That's the reason why I feel that now, more than in the past, the collaboration between these different worlds becomes essential. 10 years ago, we started to work with Canada. I was a regional minister of research and innovation, and with the Italian Chamber of Commerce, we started to have an interaction with Canada. And we, at that time, we were really convinced that these two countries were very close to each other. Many of you that are around here, they came to the first meetings that we had. We were a small region, and with Quebec, mainly with Montreal, but we started this kind of cooperation, and there came many things. And now we have a company, Italian company, that is coming to do research in Canada. There are other companies that would like to come to do research in Canada. We had a strong interaction, a market opening for a company, Italian company, that is selling part to Bombardier. So that started just as a small activity. And now I think this is the occasion to make bigger and bigger, and to have now not on the level of a region, but the level of the country, country-to-country agreement.
We have a number of university people here in Polytechnique, and I think it's probably part of the mandate of the educational institutions to bring people together for collaboration, and often we do it across disciplines. But what you're talking about is another whole different level. It's bringing people together across different sectors and trying to achieve a common vision and way of working. And maybe some of our university guests could speak about some of the challenges that you're encountering doing that and how you're addressing them.
Yes, if you want, I like to try to answer the question through a line of reasoning from Politecnico di Milano. I totally agree with Professor Nicolais. I start with some key. I'm proud to start with the QS ranking. Last year, Politecnico di Milano went into the first 50th top technical university in the world. And it is the first time for an Italian university. Politecnico, we have School of Engineering, Architectural, and Design with more than 35,000 students. Regarding funding, the funds from competitive sources, mainly private sources, are more than 18 million euros. And if we consider also consortia and spin-off, the funding is more than 120 millions. So we are increasing our policy about internalization. Science, since 2014, all the Master of Science courses will be in English. And we are increasing strategic partnership to create common projects in research and teaching with the international university and companies. For example, the Joint Research Center in Energy or the Joint Research Center in Railway Engineering that involve Bombardier. But what about the technology transfer? If you try to simplify what is our model, departments are the place where research could be developed and the ideas are born. The Technology Transfer Office plays the role of providing opportunities of the valorization, the results of the research, and the chances of strategic partnership. And finally, we have the Fondazione Politecnico di Milano, a private law institution to partner of Politecnico to follow into the market. But in other words, in conclusion, we are the ranking, we are the students, we are a research with strong industrial partnership, we are internalization policy and technology transfer system. But if you want to increase high-tech spin-off, that's not enough. You need to support non-competitive, basic, this morning said, multidisciplinary and international research. And we need also the digital agenda that we are waiting for.
And do you have any suggestions of how you would actually accomplish that, or what challenges you're encountering?
For research or for spin-off? Because I think that we have to ask if the role of the university is to create startups or to create opportunities for startups. This is the question that I have to ask to myself. I think that the role of the university is to create opportunities for our students, for our young research to startups. And we need to increase, to have a model that offers all this service, an incubator, entrepreneurship school, a transfer technology office, and a research that is driven from companies, but is also free to creativity for the student.
It's an interesting follow-on to that. In this room in November, there will be a meeting of the Canadian Federation of Business School Deans, who will spend a full day talking about the role of business schools in fostering innovation in Canadian universities. And when I say innovation, fostering innovation and sustainable implementation, economically sustainable startups that come out of ideas that are created in universities. I think business schools can provide an essential leavening in the mixture, of the interdisciplinary mixture that we're talking about, because I do think it is the role of universities to not only create knowledge, not only educate students to be able to create more knowledge and more innovation, but to also give them the tools and the assistance so they can take those ideas and actually implement them out into sustainable enterprises out in the community, which creates wealth. I think that's a very important function of university, is creating wealth, not just creating the ideas, but to actually implement them so that the society is better off. So a number of programs here at Carleton, I don't want to just wave our flag, but they do give a few examples. We've had a very innovative program, which is a degree program within the engineering faculty, but was started by business school professors aimed at taking science and technology students at the master's level who have innovative ideas and giving them the mentorship and the additional kind of sort of formation that's required to take that idea and turn it into a business by the time they graduate. And that's produced some 60 to 70 new startup companies in the Ottawa area in general over the last 7 to 8 years. That kind of idea has been taken out into the community to provide support to entrepreneurs or budding entrepreneurs in the community who really need the assistance of people who've been through the idea of implementing great ideas and finding out if they are markets or creating markets if they don't already exist. Those are the functions that business schools do. And I think this collaboration across borders within the institution is very important. So now we've created something at the undergraduate level which is a very new experience in terms of entrepreneurship, in terms of in bringing students from the business school together with students from throughout the academy to get prepared to come up with new ideas, figure out how to structure them, figure out how to get the financing to set them up, and then implement new technology and commercial startups, but not just limited to that, also social innovation in the community.
If I may,
Certainly, and then Nigel and Mona.
if I add something, I'm from Lewis University in Italy. We have only social sciences, so management, economics, political sciences, and law. I work for the business school, and pointing on the idea of collaboration. First of all, it's very important collaboration among countries. So personally, I spent 1 year here in Canada last year, granted by the Canadian government, and since then, doing business Canada became part of my research and teaching agenda. So what I learned about it is the fact that if we sum the Italian population, the Canadian population together, we have 1/3 of the US population, 1/10 of the Indian population, 1/15 probably of the Chinese population. So the question about the market is when to reach the market and which markets we should reach. So being so small, we have to be selective. And for being selective, I think this is what we teach to our students, to our potential entrepreneurs. We should shift from the paradigm of the technology push innovation to the paradigm of the market-driven innovation. So to some extent, we have too many inventions on one hand, on both sides, but we have few real-life innovation. So spoiling the words of the Governor General this morning, he said, innovation is solving real-life problems. So I don't know if the academia is to blame, if the market is to blame, who is to blame for that, but sometimes academia is producing brilliant ideas, but self-referential. They are self-referential, whereas the market is looking for something else. And then China comes at 1/10 of the time or 1.5 of the time. So we don't have this opportunity anymore to wait for a brilliant technology to get transformed into a brilliant product or a brilliant process. So by collaborating, we could be able to shorten this time, which is making us not that competitive in the global competition. This is what we teach our students.
Okay. Nigel.
Yeah, I'd like to pick up on what Luigi said. I resonated with your critical mass comment. You could not have critical mass without discovering the Higgs boson. And so that was a joke, people. Wake up. The Higgs boson.
That talks next door.
Yeah, that talks next door. So the Higgs boson is probably the most significant discovery in particle physics in the last 50 years. And I'd just like to draw attention to the Italian contribution to that. So you all know about the CERN Large Hadron Collider. There's 4 major experiments there. Last year, every single experiment was led by an Italian physicist. That's an unusual strength for a country of the size of Italy. So it's truly amazing. And Canada is involved in one of those experiments, the ATLAS experiment. And that is led by Fabiola Giannetti. So it's a woman that's a physicist leading that program. So that's a remarkable event in itself, because there's clearly women are underrepresented in physics. But my point is that the way you discover a new particle, and we can discuss it later, is by pushing technology. And so the role of a basic science laboratory is to push technology. So you make the next discovery not by being smarter, but by having a better experiment. And so the challenge for innovation is to look at that cutting edge, that vanguard of new ideas, and say, can I commercialize that? Can I take that to a proof of principle? Can I use it for something? I joke with my friends, and I often say, well, particle physics is finished. We discovered the World Wide Web. What did you discover? You know, it's just, big things come out of basic science, and they come out of it for necessity reasons. So scientists are driven by their desire to learn new things, not to commercialize. And so that difference in cultures we shouldn't lose, because you're going to lose the drive if you ask the scientists to commercialize. But the trick is to convince them they should let somebody know they've discovered something or they've pushed technology that's useful. So I would start there.
It sounds to me like you're coming at a different direction than your colleague next to you who's looking for the problem and then for the solution. Mona, maybe you'd like to jump in.
Well, I'm going to start by dismissing the myth that universities don't partner with other sectors. I was looking at the latest numbers from AUCC, that's the Association of Universities and Colleges in Canada. And this sector, the last year, or perhaps these were numbers from the year before, had $10 billion worth of research activity. Of this, 60% or so was externally funded. So this includes the academic hospitals as well and so on. So there is actually funding from the institutions that goes towards research. Of the 6 billion, only half of it was from government and 3 billion were from other sources. And these other sources were contract research, were partnership with the private sector, were international partnerships and so on. So I think that we need, this myth somehow that universities are silos and, don't talk to the rest of the world. We really need to put it to rest. Can we do more? We can always do more. The second thing that we've talked a lot about today has been research and markets and so on, but we haven't touched on people. Okay, so research is a people's business. So you need talent, you need the professors, but you need the students. And I was delighted to hear that Italy will be having its own digital strategy in a few days. Canada too has a digital infrastructure strategy and priority. The United States also has one, and every country probably is going to have one. The problem is, who is going to implement this digital strategy? So today in the New York Times, one of the headlines was about Microsoft sending its own paid engineers to high school to get them interested in computer science and computer engineering. So just some numbers here that certainly impressed me. So the Association for Computer Machinery has estimated that there is a need for 150,000 jobs every year, okay, in this sector until 2020. And right now, 14,000 graduate every year. So I think these are sobering numbers, and this is only in the digital economy that we're talking about. This is something that touches on health, that touches on smart cities, that touches on just about everything. So I think it's really important for universities to remember, their mission and their duty to society and to the markets, which is to train the people that are needed. And all the time being sort of reactive to the market is not going to be helpful, because it takes a certain number of years to get these students, through and to the market. So I think that we need to have a balance here between maybe the market push and the market pull, but to remember also our basic mission. This being said, both at Carleton, at the University of Ottawa, and in many places, the spin-offs, and we heard from our Governor General, have come from computer science and from engineers, often working with business schools and colleagues, and we all have some outfits in our institutions to help them and connect them with our alumni who are from the private sector and so on. but we need to have these people in. So that's my perspective.
Giovanni, you're head of the Italian data system.
I'm not a scientist. I'm an entrepreneur. So every day I must try to decide about technology, investment, and market. My company, it's a technology company. We are in some niche technology and market, and we invest 23–24% every year of our balance in research, because we are not a large company. We are around 500 people, and we are located also in Canada with 2 companies, and we must try to understand what is the new technology tomorrow and what the customer needs for tomorrow. This is the challenge that every day we have. Because if we are not the first, the big players destroy us. And so every morning when I get up, it's okay, it's a new day. Now what I can do to win on the market with my competitors, and the relationship with the university and the research center, for us, it's very, very important. In Italy, we have a lot of collaboration with some university, and our target is also to start in Canada. In Canada, at the moment, we have around 60 people in 2 companies, one in Montreal and one in Ottawa. One is EDS North America, is focused more on the market of North America and also in services. The Ubitech, the company that we have in Ottawa, it's a technology company to develop new technologies in air navigation. And so we want to develop more relationship with the Canadian university, and also to be the link between the Italian and the Canadian university in some common project. So I hope that the future could be very successful now for this Congress. And so thank you also for the opportunity to be here, in particular for our ambassador. Thank you so much.
Thank you. I believe Luigi wanted to comment.
Yeah, I would like to make a comment also following what Giovanni was saying now, but also related to Luca Giustiniano comments. You know, if you just you have an innovation which is driven by market, you are working on an innovation which is not very new, because you are trying just to give to the market something that you know that they want. So it's an innovation which has a short range of innovation. But real innovation has to create the market. The real innovation has to be something that creates the market. I remember when I was studying in the United States, we started to work on composite materials. And we thought that composite material was a beautiful material, but never could be applied because the cost was very high and perhaps could be applied only for military application. Now, Boeing made an airplane with composite, but that was 40 years ago, 35 years ago. So it means that if you want really to make a big technological change, which is what we should look at, but of course there are other different levels of innovation, we should be able to be ambitious, saying that we can change the world. We have not to just follow what is changing around us. We have to try to govern the changes. And that's the real problem. Sure, innovation can be also other things. Of course, we speak about spin-off, interaction with the industry, are totally different fields. Activity. Spin-off is something that someone starts with a new idea. We have to help him. And this finance comes as an important factor. Who is paying for? Because when you have just made a patent and then you want to go to the market, there is that valley that, as you call in the North America, that you have to fill. Who is going to pay for it? And then you need people that believe in what you have done. And that becomes the key issue of all the project. On the other side, of course, if you want to develop something in order to make more competitive a company, what I feel that the academic research university, CNA, they should work together with the company in the moment of designing the project. Not at the end of the project. We don't sell technology. When you say technology transfer, what is the meaning technology transfer? I just develop the technology and I'm selling the technology. That's impossible. Because with the technology, you have to sell the brain of someone that has developed the technology. So I think we have to speak mainly in a different way. We have to say, I want to make value from the research that I have developed. Right. And it's different. That means that you have to work with people that are ready to invest, and you have to design the research together. That's the point. The moment of interaction between university or CNR and industry should move back to the moment of designing a new project, not should be just at the end of the project that is being developed.
I'd like to come back to the issue of making value, but in the meantime.
Yeah. No, I think that you've opened up a way of thinking that's really important, I believe. That's in many ways what I was alluding to at the beginning. You know, if you're going to do challenging things, you do have to have some understanding of where you're trying to push, where you're trying to lead, where you're trying to anticipate. And at the end, regardless which it is, the trick, I think, is that you have to bear in mind that in the end we have to satisfy a market. Now that doesn't necessarily mean it exists yet. And I think Apple has demonstrated that rather well. They don't actually focus nearly as much on technology as they do on the design and the sort of anticipation of functionalities that people will buy into. But we have to satisfy the market. But in order to take people to stretch the time horizons of companies beyond what they will normally do, one of the jobs for an entity like us is clearly to de-risk their investment so they can take a little bit longer view. Now that's where, again, I think the point of designing together becomes critical. If you don't do that, then effectively all you're doing is pushing projects. And it has two very severe limitations when you go down that path. The first one, of course, is that you already have in mind what you want to do, and you're trying to convince somebody else to buy into it, as opposed to working together to understand what needs to be done, and then actually both being committed to doing it. It changes the dynamic completely. The second thing is that you actually have to have some patience, and that requires usually some financial resources. And certainly organizations like an NRC or my Italian equivalent here can bring to bear a variety of tools that in fact are helpful in that respect. So at NRC, for example, we have our strategic programs where we're trying to build substantial critical mass, engage lots of players, do something that really is, in the end, game-changing. But we also have tools like the Industrial Research Assistance Program that are much smaller, more nimble and agile, and are dedicated and directed towards assisting earlier stage companies or earlier development stages of technology. Then we try to combine those with things like our international relationships, sometimes with organizations like ourselves on stage here, but other times with things like the Eureka program, which we've brought Canada in as an associate member, which provide an enabling mechanism for Canadian participants to access European technology and markets in their development stages and so on. So I think the other trick is to be able to have this toolkit that we can link up with a longer term view, but always remembering that in the end, we have to satisfy a market even if it's a new one.
One last comment, and then I'm going to open up for questions from the floor, if that's okay, Mona.
Yeah, I just wanted to go back to the idea that, you know, for the partnership at the very beginning, you wanted to occur between the university and the partner. And I think that there's, you know, a lot to be said about this. You're absolutely right. It can be done in actually quite an innovative way, and universities partner with industry and private sector at different stages, I think, depending on the industry as well. So I'm just going to give an example of a partnership that we have with IBM. We being 6 universities in Ontario with the leadership actually of the University of Toronto. So this is a consortium, you know, in which actually the federal and the provincial government has invested, has bought in. IBM has invested a very large amount of funds, both for infrastructure and for talent. And the universities basically are working together, so this is also fun. They're not competing with each other, around 3 topics: health, smart cities, and water. And we put on the table basically the topic, and we discuss which projects we are going to fund and work together on achieving. And of course, they involve students and so on. So I think that's also a very interesting model. We're not so concerned about IP and so on. We're just, you know, starting with the problem anyway at stake. And by the way, such a consortium actually provides a great platform for small and medium-sized enterprise who need to access high-performance computing, who need to access other infrastructure and talent that's provided by the consortium. So I think that you know, we're increasingly moving into these new areas as well.
I know. One last comment, and then we'll open.
Yeah, just to clarify my idea of what I mean by market-driven. I mean, I don't consider the existing market, but I think about latent needs. I think about social innovation. Mm-hmm. I think about something that creates an improvement for someone else. The point is that I pay a huge respect to the basic research where, you know, as was discussed, you have to improve your technicalities and you have to improve your experiments. But when it comes to the so-called applied research or applied innovation, then if you don't think about the market on the premises and you try to figure out at the beginning what the possible applications might be, then your applied innovation is not contemporary anymore when you're ready for the market. And through cooperation between technical institutions and business schools and other entities like this, or facilitators and public institutions, this kind of prevention is possible.
Do we have time for questions, Randy? Are there any questions from the floor for our panel? Do you want to?
Yeah, hi, Tim Meyer from Triumph. I just want to go back to something that you said, Mr. McDougall from NRC, and this question, we've got some really good ideas on this panel, but are we really talking about levels of resources that will make a difference? I mean, the first Boeing 787 Dreamliner cost $32 billion. The next 49 cost or sell for $200 million each. So when we're talking about these ideas of partnering at early stages and you having the resources to have the patience, are we actually talking at the right scale, or are we just scratching the surface of something?
Well, a quick response to that is that you do need scale. And one of the things that happens is if you're going to do something significant, it's usually not going to happen with one person. It involves a whole bunch of skills, first of all, more than just technology. The technology, though, component, when you think about the innovative part of it, even in something like the Dreamliner, for example, isn't the billions of dollars. The billions of dollars are lots of other things. The technology component is a relatively small percentage of that. So a team of 50 to 100 people is actually very significant in terms of going after a major problem. But I'll give you an example of what can happen. Food is on this agenda, so we're trying to put together right now, and have just concluded, a major initiative related to wheat improvement. something that has been sort of left aside to a large degree in the improving productivity of cereal crops. And by identifying the real agenda, the outcome we were trying to achieve, we brought together a fair number of parties and created, well, at this point I think it's about a $150 million effort to tackle this one agenda, with different people bringing different capabilities. So we have other government agencies, we have other governments, we have industry, we have all kinds of people who've come to the table to say, yes, together we can do this. So that's the way you have to, I think, lead with this. And that's really the difference between the discovery research model and the more mission-oriented model, I think. And it's not that there's right or wrong, because you need both. But certainly when you're going into a mission state, you know, the best example in probably was the Second World War. There were major missions that were addressed, major teams put together, and they just drove to the end. And I think we've got to some degree to try to model against that kind of approach.
If I can just say something, this is precisely, you know, the issue that the consortium that I just mentioned with IBM and 7 universities and 2 levels of governments, you know, is trying to address. So in this case, we have a $210 million investment that's coming from different places. And I think this is going to, you know, to push us and motivate us increasingly to work together across institutions and sectors.
Further questions? We have 2.
My name is Nick Marqueros. I'm from McMaster University in Hamilton. I have a question for the panel. And in the context of innovation, I just wondered what you see the role of organizations which are in the middle between the academic world and industry. And I'm thinking of organizations like the Fraunhofer Institute in Germany, for lack of a better word, as an example only, that would play sort of a middle role. You know, it's neither a university nor an industrial private company lab. Do you see any role for that?
Yeah. Can I? Sure. Sure I see. You know, many years ago when I was working on that at university, trying to put together university and industries, I thought it was very difficult to do through university directly. So at that time we decided we could develop a kind of a body that could be bought as Fraunhofer, because Fraunhofer is a good example of that. Because sometimes it's difficult inside the university to using the rules of university to start this strong cooperation. I think the consortium that she was speaking about is also in this direction. You have university, you have companies, but you have a body, an entity that's different. Also our technological districts in Italy, and this afternoon Dottoressa Milella will speak about IMAST, which is one example. You have universities, CNR and industry together working outside of university, but all together in the same environment. I think it's an important issue.
Just make a quick comment. I'll know we've achieved our goal when you say like NRC as opposed to like Fraunhofer.
And one final question.
I believe the Dean of Business mentioned about how there was this cross-fertilization between the engineering faculty and the School of Business. I'm just wondering, is that happening anywhere else? I'm with Agriculture and Agri-Food Canada, and one of the things that we often, or groups that we often work with, are deans of agriculture and colleges. But those folks, we're trying to look at them as ambassadors within the university systems to link up with faculties such as business schools so that we can better create students who graduate from the agricultural faculties to have the capacities in the business areas to create attractive investment opportunities and a culture of entrepreneurship, which is often lacking in those other sub-sectors. So I'd be interested to hear, like you talked about the engineering faculty, which is an attractive faculty. Unfortunately, agriculture is always looked at as a flyover area. But what about those other kinds of faculties? Do you make approaches to those?
Absolutely, and I think it's it's really the job of the applied faculties in general to, I think, provide the interface with the community at large in many different ways, of which business is only one. Agriculture is obviously one as well. But I think in this discussion that we had going back and forth, it was as if there were some tug between fundamental basic research in a university and the applied outcomes that would come out into the community. I mean, going back to the comments that were made in the beginning, innovation is a group project, and it cannot exist without any of those components. Fundamental basic research that just stops at fundamental basic research has no impact in the society that's paying for it. And so that can't be of in itself an end by itself. So I think business schools and other applied schools like engineering have as our mission to reach out to the rest of the university, including faculties like your own, to actually provide that interface to allow these projects to actually come to fruition in a sustainable way. Good point.
I just like to mention an NSERC program that's actually extraordinary, which is the training grant. They're called CREATE. And basically the purpose is to train scientists and engineers and give them value-added skills, so business, regulatory knowledge, policy, etc. And in fact, one of the first that we had at the University of Ottawa was in chemistry, and we developed with a business school a sort of graduate certificate in management that is dedicated to this area. When this passed Senate, actually the other faculties, health sciences and medicine and others, were not happy that they were excluded from it, and they wanted, they were at the door of the business school and wanting to develop, their own program, if you want, and not only with the business school, I must say, but also with the faculty of law.
Nigel.
Yeah, I just wanted to follow up on that because the CREATE program is very popular. In fact, it's so popular, we've created our own CREATE program. So I've been communicating with...
It was a trademark.
Communicating with the president of INFN, who is the leader of particle and nuclear physics in Italy. Italy's building a big new accelerator near the University of Rome. And in order to get the rest of the world engaged, they're looking at how to have students and postdocs participate. So we've decided on our own that we're going to do that. And I said, let's base it on something I'm aware of, which is called the CREATE program that NSERC initiated. And basically a student, a Canadian student, would go to Italy for 1 year and work in that environment. And when we talk about innovation, different countries are going to approach it differently. And so when they come back, they're going to be thinking a little bit differently. And I think it's that interaction of being immersed in an international environment, which is such a tremendous opportunity for students. So I agree with you completely that that's back to your people theme, I think, that that's really where the innovation is going to come from.
Super, thank you. And I think in our next panel, Dr. Fortier will be here as well to talk a bit more about NSERC. So it's a good segment. So thank you very much, all of you, for your ideas. I think you've tapped into some of the complexities of dealing with innovation in different research sectors and how we move it to commercialization, et cetera. So on that note, do we have a break now or do we move into the next panel? Okay, so stick around for the next one.